Yo, I'm Gada and I'm making a game in solo. And this month, I went deep into everything happening around the cooking minigame, especially the little background skits of the main character. Just have a look. To make the scene more dynamic, I created a bunch of loopable cinematics for each skill the player can use. Whenever an action is chosen during the minigame, it triggers the cinematics in the background based on the player's choice. So instead of just staring at a generic animation in the background while playing, you see your character react and move dynamically based on the player's action. It makes the scene feel more dynamic, interactive, and just way more fun to watch. So let's start by talking about those animations. You know, some months everything just flows, you make progress super fast and it feels like you're riding this big wave of productivity. And then there are months like this one where progress is still there but it takes way longer because you need to stop and actually learn new skills. I started the month thinking, okay, I'll spend a couple of days animating, then I can move on to the next minigame. But no, turns out there was something I had to figure out first. I've been experimenting with a tool called Quick Magic, which basically lets you do motion capture using just a regular phone camera. You film yourself, the tool processes it, and bam, you get full 3D animations. Honestly, it's kind of magical. You don't need a mocap suit or expensive equipment, and the results are surprisingly convincing. So at first, I thought, this is it. I'll film myself in my kitchen, making a soup or whatever, throw it in the engine and boom, instant animation library. But it's not that simple. I ran into two issues. First, cleaning mocap data takes way more time than I expected. When you capture movements, they rarely match your character's proportion perfectly, and the data isn't 100% clean. You end up with jitter, arms and legs clipping with the body, or feet sliding across the floor. And if the animation involves interacting with objects, good luck, that's twice as much cleanup. The second issue was that mocap is realistic by nature, which sounds great until you put it into a stylized game. It's like when you were a kid watching Dragon Ball Z and then try to reenact the fight scene with your brother. Suddenly it looks way less epic. And yeah, these are just cooking animations, not kamehamehas, but still, they felt a bit too flat, lacking that extra bit of style I wanted. So in the end, I actually redid a bunch of the animation by hand, which honestly gave me better results. That said, I don't regret the time spent learning mocap. I think it's going to be useful later on, especially for more subtle stuff like character dialogues, but now at least I know the limits of the workflow. So yeah, animation progress wasn't as fast as I hoped, but I gained valuable experience. Now, let's move on to the part of the month where I feel like I leveled up. Because this month, I finally started experimenting with the music implementation in the game. I would be lying if I said I made the music. All I did was to dig through tons of sample libraries, drum loops, guitar riffs, melodies, and started stitching them together. But even that, just arranging pre-made samples helped me bring the sound I had in my head into the actual game. I've been learning FL Studio from time to time for a while now, but this month I pushed myself to learn it more seriously. Not to become a proper producer, that would be unrealistic, but at least to know the basics. How to make loops seamless, how to change pitch and tempo, how to layer instruments, and to at least pretend I understand words like keys, scales, or chord progressions. And even if I'm still far from mastering it, it was enough to start building the game's sound identity. From the beginning, I knew I wanted a soundtrack inspired by old-school hip-hop boom-bap style. A big influence is Samurai Champloo, where hip-hop completely defines the anime vibe. And here's a slightly embarrassing confession. I kind of love an old French movie called Taxi, mainly because of its soundtrack. It's not the best movie in the world, that's for sure, but the old school hip-hop beats give it such a unique atmosphere, and that's exactly the kind of impact I want my game's music to have. To add my own twist, I'm also trying to integrate samples of Central Asian instruments to tie in with the Silk Road theme. And I'm starting to think that I might end up collaborating with someone who actually plays these instruments, because finding high-quality, royalty-free samples online is not easy. Speaking of audio, I also worked on sound effects this month, and whoa, even small effects make the game feel so much more alive. If you're also making games and you don't know this already, every year during the GDC, a bunch of free sound effects are added to a library. And at this point, it's now several thousand gigabytes of sounds, completely royalty-free. A lot of my effects actually come from there. And let me tell you, I now have a whole new respect for sound designer. I never realized how much dedication it takes until I spend hours scrolling through clauses, rustling sounds, just to find the perfect one every time my character moves his sleeve. On the visual side, I didn't push too hard this month. I mostly reused the effects I had already made for the combat, like dust clouds or impact effects. But honestly, it felt good. The further a project goes, the bigger your asset libraries get, and the more you can reuse. It's like the project starts building momentum on its own. So yeah, maybe I was a little too optimistic last month when I thought I'd already be starting the next minigame by now. The cooking minigame still needed more polish before I could call it functional. But on the bright side, without really planning it, I made big progress on the audio side. Between the first music test, the sound effects and the animations, I finally feel like I'm starting to capture the chill, coolness vibe I've been aiming for since the beginning. Thanks again for following these devlogs. If you haven't already, don't forget to wishlist the game on Steam. It's free and it really helps the project, and the links is in the description. Alright, that's it for this month. See you in the next devlog. Bye.